Right. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to all our viewers today. Thank you very much for tuning again once again for our live show ATF Coffee Talk. Okay, and today we have a very interesting topic to discuss, especially to those who are into triathletes. Okay, we have a very renowned speaker or expert in this field, and I'll share a bit more on that later on. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you everyone for always being with us every Friday and spending your time. And if you are new to the show and have missed out our previous show where we had all other athletes and coaches, you can check back our past video on our website, not our website, on Facebook and YouTube channel. Okay. As always, please do share this video on your social media so other people can get benefit out of this show as well, where there will be a lot of sharing and experience that might be valuable to some of you guys who are into triathletes. Okay, and again, every single week we are giving away awesome prizes. If you stick through till the end of the show, so make sure korang stay sampai habis to stand a chance to win some interesting prizes from ATF worth over 300 ringgit. Okay, so what is the topic that we'll be discussing today? Okay, so some of you might already know what is Ironman. So it comprises of three disciplines. All right. So start with swimming, cycling, and at the end of it is some running. So today we'll be discussing the topic of the mentality needed to be an Ironman. Okay. Ironman is a mix of stamina and speed, where triathlon is not new. It's some of the sport in the Olympic Games already. The format combines swimming, cycling, and running, as I mentioned earlier, and has been growing in Malaysia, especially with the event organizer having a lot of events all around Malaysia, and especially Ironman in Putrajaya and Langkawi. Okay, today we'll be discussing the mental and physical preparation needed to become an Ironman, and with us we have a certified coach, Miss Suke. So here's a brief background that we got from her. I think she's tried to keep herself secretive. Okay, her full name is Suke, born in 6th of April 1982, born and raised in Kuching, Sarawak, but have been staying around in Kuala Lumpur, Klang Valley for quite some time. Okay, she actually, I knew her from a acquaintance friend of mine, and we've been meeting and doing some running around the trail before. She has a background in mass communication and have been involved in triathlon since 2014. Okay, some of her achievement include of completing 70.3 World Championship qualification. I mean, I'm sure she have completed a lot of triathlon events. So I'll let her do the sharing later on. And without further ado, let us welcome Miss Suke today.
Hello.
All
Hi.
right, hi.
Thank
Okay.
you, Azmi, for that wonderful welcome and introduction.
All right, sure. So we've known for quite some times, and we have chit chat a little bit, but not much into this particular topic. So
Mhm.
before we go in depth, why not you probably describe or explain a little bit more about yourself? I mean, mine was really brief because we didn't get much information from you because you were very secretive, I guess. So, and then maybe you can share with the audience today the origin, how you get into this space and how you evolved to become
Yeah.
one of the certified coach. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah. I think a lot of people are quite curious as to how one actually starts uh, being a triathlete. But in all honesty, I think everyone has a background in a certain sport, and that is the same with mine. You can either have a background in running, cycling, or swimming in the beginning, but as you progress, you like a challenge. So what people do is eventually they pick up multi sports. They start doing another sport, and and triathlon in Malaysia is relatively quite new. So when I joined, it was a nice close knit community. Even the way I was introduced into the sport of triathlon was through a cycling group, a cycling group. Yeah, so that's how I got into triathlon, which was duathlon. I started duathlon first because that's all I knew how to do. I was a land animal, so all I could do was run and cycle. The swimming part came much later. So this is the weird addiction that comes with being a multi-sport athlete, that you have to pick on it. Once you're quite okay with one or two sports, you want to challenge yourself. You keep picking at the at the scab. You want to feel some sort of growth in another way. So then there was the swimming part. So I joined a swim group, and then after that, did my first try, a sprint, and then an OD, and then I progressed to a 70.3 up until today, and up until last year, which nothing happened. So we're all on the same boat.
All right. Okay. Very brief introduction. Okay. So I think you have mentioned how you got into involved from duathlon, and then slowly, once you are stable or perhaps comfortable with that duathlon, you pick up
Yeah.
new part of it, which is swimming, and eventually into triathletes and triathlon stuff like that. But if you may share, Sue,
Mm.
before you even went into duathlon, were you an active kid when you were young? What kind of sport did you play back in Kuching? And who were the person responsible to bring you into duathlon and eventually triathlon?
Okay. I'm sure my story is also not very unique. I was not a very sporty person when I was younger. Being having a very tiger mom, Asian tiger mom, we're told to study more, to pursue things that more rational lah, more for a woman, especially for a girl. So I was not really encouraged to do sports when I was younger, which is why I'm very glad now to see there's a lot of parents who are encouraging their kids as young as 6 years old, girls, boys, to pick up sport, because I think growing up in my generation, we eventually found out the true value of being active, of being a part of a sport club, and what sports actually does to a person. So even for me, being involved in triathlon actively, yeah. So like I said, I wasn't really a sporty girl growing up, but I did do running and I did do yoga, which is a very yin sort of sport. But when I transitioned into something more yang, which is cycling, and then now doing a triathlon. I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so let's reel it back in. Yeah, so it's very nice to see that parents now understand what sport actually contributes into the growth and the character building of a person. So, yeah, I guess what I wanted to say was just actively being in sports for the past 6, 7, or 8 years has done so much for my own growth. I used to be such a shy girl. I think I'm still kind of introvert and quite shy, but it also steals you. It does something to you. It sports challenges you mentally. That's why the topic for today is the mentality of being involved in an Ironman. It does break you down physically, which then leads to hopefully not a horrible breakdown in your spirituality and your mentality as well. So if you can actually overcome all those things and you prove to yourself and to other people that you can do it, it does something to you. It transforms you from inside. And that sort of transformation, I think, is what a lot of people are going after, and what parents want their kids to learn at a very young age.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I like the point that you mentioned that during your generation, or pretty much my generation as well. I mean, we were told that all you need to do is study, study, study. But I know somewhere along the line, people like you were stubborn, and me who stubborn, opt to go a different route altogether. I mean, and seeing that a lot of parents nowadays see the sports in a different perspectives altogether is very wonderful. Okay, you never know. I mean, yeah, actually, sports can actually be part of a character building of a kids. Okay. Anyhow, all right, we're gonna go into straight to our first question. Okay. So, I mean, coaching triathlon is an interesting profession. I mean, especially knowing that training for a triathlon will take months and perhaps years, especially those who are doing it for the first time. And being a coach for this sport, when it take full commitment and determination. So maybe you can share with our audience today, and perhaps other people who are inspired to be coach in this field. How did you get started involved as a coach of Ironman at the first place? Maybe you can share your origin story, from an athlete yourself, and then suddenly transitioning into coaching. Being an athlete is one thing, but being a
Yes.
coach is another thing. So perhaps
Yeah.
you can share your wisdom today.
Okay. All right. So I think most of you will know that I have also a background in yoga. So I'm also a yoga instructor. So I'm doing the yoga instructing and being training as a triathlete at the same time. So now you're talking about what made me take that extra step to be a triathlon coach. So this was years ago. So actually, I had this desire to be a coach for a long, long time. Except that I didn't tell anyone. So on the background, I was studying and trying to be more familiarize myself with the training. As I think it's a fact that in Malaysia there's not a lot of triathlon coaches. I can count in with this hand, or maybe I add now 10 lah. After the Ironman certification, maybe there's a little bit more. But if you see the ratio of coach to student, it's 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 very lopsided. It's not doable, which is why in the end you get a lot of self coaches, athletes who in the end coach themselves. Ideally, the numbers of coach to student is maybe 1 to 30, or 1 to 20, or if you can, the lower the number of students you have, obviously the more quality your training and coaching is going to be. Yeah, so knowing the fact of how many coaches there are, certified certified coaches in Malaysia, compared to how many interested triathletes there are, I think that kind of pushed me to take that extra step, because I would see, even for myself, I would train. At that time, I have a coach. Even now, we're still coaching with a structured training plan. But I really needed to know why. And I think athletes must ask this too, and not just follow the program blindly, like buta-buta you follow, right? You must know what the program is meant to do, and whether it's suitable for you. And I can go so deep into this. I really don't want to go off tangent. Yeah, so I'm gonna pull myself in. Yeah, so because of this one thing, I hope that I can further educate athletes how to choose the coach for them. I know we have a very limited number of coaches. Yeah,
All right.
it's
All
good.
right. Good knowing that there's an opportunity in the market, that seeing that the gap is ratio of coaches to the potential athlete is huge. So I mean, it was very wise of you to take part of it. I mean,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, being an athlete yourself, you know that this, especially the newcomer, need guidance. Without proper training, they
Yes.
can lead to injuries and wasting time. That kind of thing.
Yes, and what
Okay.
I worry also, because there again number of coaches, then if you cut out the number of female coaches are even less.
All
And if
right.
you
Okay.
think about the number of female triathletes that are coming up, and there's
Yeah.
no female that can
Interaction.
relate to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, that's good. If I may ask, just a follow-up question to this. You mentioned that there is a very huge gap. What is the current numbers of coaches to potential market that we have in Malaysia? If you were to say in estimate a rough number, how
Uh,
many? How many? What is the size of triathlete audience in Malaysia, or aspiring triathletes in Malaysia, as relatively to the certified coaches in Malaysia?
all I know for sure is every time we have races, there are thousands.
Okay,
there's,
okay,
there's at least a thousand or not more joining
okay,
our local races like PD Tri. So
okay.
if I have to count how many coaches that I know of,
Uh-huh.
maybe less than 10 that I know
Okay,
of yang dah
okay.
certified. Because
All right.
there are those who are not, but they're still coaching.
Okay, understood. Okay, so guys, so if you want to be coach and you love triathlon, sorry. So this is a very opportunity gap that you can take up,
Get yourself
especially
qualified.
yeah,
Yeah.
especially hard time. So why not get certified and become a coach
Certified
so you
since
can
you had nothing to do.
you can help more people. All right. So we're
Yes.
gonna move on to the next question. There are a few types of triathlon. I mean, specifically on the distance. Maybe
Mm.
you can share first. I mean, probably for the audience who is not familiar with the sport, what is the difference between sprint and Olympic triathlon, and maybe with a full Ironman punya triathlon?
All is distance. It's just a difference of distance.
Okay, maybe you can be more specific, so more specific. Berapa distance berbeza dia? Okay, go.
I don't quite remember the sprint distance because I was watching Super what are the WTS the other day. But for the swim, okay, I'm going to the OD. I'm gonna skip sprint. Go to the OD. OD for the swim is 1.5. The cycle is 40, and then you run 10. All right. So this is then you double it up. Yeah, about double it up for the 70.3. So it's 1.9 swim, 90K bike, and 21K run, which is a half marathon. So for the full, again, you double it up. So it's 3.8 swim, 180K bike, and the run is a full marathon. So that is the difference when you're talking about these four for categories of triathlon. But of course, there's other types. We had the relay, which is usually a team mixed relay. If you look at Olympics next year or this year, this year, there's a mixed relay. So it's a mix of 2 boys and 2 girls. They're doing a super sprint, which is, oh gosh, what's the distance? I think it's 300-meter swim and 6 to 7 kilometer bike, which is all very fast. So you can imagine the energy system that you use for a sprint is completely different from an
Hello.
Ironman distance.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I got some internet problem down here. So, but I'm back. Can you hear me, Sue?
Yes, can.
Okay, okay. We had some minor problems just now. Okay, anyhow, okay. Sue just mentioned about the distance of the 4 events, style of the events. So, from the explanation and Sue itself, you can see how far you have to complete it. So, of course, it takes you a lot of training before you can actually jump into it. Even myself, who had done a few marathons that were already taking a toll on myself, especially one of the marathon where I didn't train properly. So if you want to complete an Ironman, you just imagine, it's not a joke. It's not a, simply jump into the bandwagon. All right.
Although some
So
people do that.
yeah, and of course you're gonna face the consequences for the
You're
next
gonna pay for it,
one to
yeah.
2 months. All right. Anyway, we can move on to the next question. So those who are watching, if you have any question, please drop down on the comment section. We'll pick up and ask you immediately. Okay. So number three, since there is a few type of triathlon, how does one decide what is the right for him or her? As a coach, maybe you can advise to those aspiring, where do they start and how do they progress to eventually complete an Ironman?
Okay, I don't think that there's a set rule of where you can start or where you should start. You can, to be honest, if you want to, you can sign up for full Ironman also. But the thing is, you need to give yourself that time to train for it. So if you only want or have time to train in the next month or so, then obviously the less time you have to train, the shorter your distance is. That's why I used to get this question of, have you ever heard of people who join, who a newbie to sign up for a full Ironman? And I say yes, but they gave themselves a full year to train for it, which means leading up to it, they actually do a proper sprint and OD and half, peppered in to build up their fitness, because their A race is eventually the full Ironman. So I guess to answer that question is, perhaps ask yourself, there's a few questions that you need to ask yourself before you sign up for something. One is maybe the level of fitness that you currently are in. Obviously, we can still develop and build on your fitness. But most importantly is the time that you have to train. If you have a lot of time to train for a full Ironman is a lot of commitment. But you can do that if you have a lot of time, then you can sign up for a full Ironman. Otherwise, you can happily scale down to a 70.3, which is a very manageable, maybe 10 to 13 hour week training. You can, if you are even more time staffed than that, if you only have 6 to 8 hours, you can still do a 70.3 comfortably. But if you only have maybe 8 to 10 hours a week free to train, then I probably wouldn't say go do a full Ironman. So I think that's the question that you need to ask yourself first. So yeah.
All right, guys. So if you ever dream of completing an Ironman, which that is me, okay, I want to complete an Ironman one day before I leave this world. Okay, that's one of my goals. Okay. Yeah, you have to ask yourself again whether you can commit to a training regime that requires to complete this, because this is not as I want to do it tomorrow and you just do it. You can, but you probably die halfway. But
Yeah,
nonetheless,
I just want to add something. Yeah, I just want to add something that people forget the recovery time. So if you train for 2 hours in a day, don't forget that you need to at least recover. So you're going to be out for a lot of hours after that.
Yeah. 100%. Couldn't agree more. Okay, so just you can actually gradually start slowly, and eventually once you have the mileage and your body conditioned to the sports, then you can upgrade yourself. But if you are jenis yang guang ho, go ahead. Nothing wrong, and then
Yeah,
you can get just suffer yourself for a while and you get that bragging right for the rest of your life.
Yes, not saying that you can.
Yes,
Go ahead.
of course. Yeah. All right. Okay. So moving on to our next question. So, we all know that, I mean, triathlon probably one of the hardest and intense sport in the world. It needs skill, stamina, plays a huge role to join the sports. Person must have a mental toughness as well. As a coach, okay, how do you prepare all your athletes mentally? How do you incorporate that? Doing part of the physical stuff probably is the easiest part, and you just go through, okay, you do this drill, do. But I mean, some people, they can do all the training, but during the race day itself, even though they have prep as much as they can, still have that mental barrier in completing the event themselves. Maybe you can share a little bit on how you train your athletes, and as well as what are the tips to look at if you want to have a very strong mental, at least to complete your first ever Ironman or half Ironman or triathlon for that matter.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually a very good question, but a very common question also. There's a lot of fear when someone goes into race day because of a lot of things, lah. Because it's unfamiliar, they're unsure, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. I suppose there's a lot of ways to prepare yourself, actually, especially in training. So as coaches, coaches will actually, by right, program in some very, very hard sessions. Not in the beginning, yeah. So there's phases to training. So maybe build to the build phase and to later part of the phase, close to the race prep phase, to build in a lot of sessions that are very, very tough on you. I've heard of this podcast. I'm just going to share this podcast where this coach will ask the athletes a question of whether would you rather do a long 4-hour bike ride or a very intense VO2 max threshold type workout. So if the question is that they want to do the long bike ride, and they say, obviously you need to do the other one, the VO2 max one. So I suppose one of the tips is if you are training for any sort of races, any sort of sport, you have to get yourself out of the comfort zone to challenge yourself. Say during training, you usually avoid running hills because it's very hard, right? The more you hate it, the more you must go and do it. So if you usually run two Ks up and down, you double it, and then eventually you do more and more. The more you overload, it's called overload training, right? So the more you overload the body, something happens to the body and the brain. I think they call it the neuroplasticity. The more hurt you give yourself, and your brain will suddenly get used to it. So on race day, the more prepared you are for the pain in training, the less you are going to be afraid coming into racing. So I think so far I've only spoken about the bike, the land ones, like the bike and the run, where you really push your body over the limit, but you train it safely, lah. That's why you have a coach, right? But when you're talking about swimming is the first leg of triathlon. And this is a very common fear, a very common phobia. I share the same phobia, which I have a fear of open water swims when I started triathlon. So it's the same thing. You have to put yourself in that situation of discomfort, of fear over and over again until the mind knows and recognizes that it's not a threat. So you should have no fear. And it's not as easy as telling someone, yeah, right? Oh, you had to overcome your fear, eventually you've overcome it. It comes through practice. So the more you practice your craft, going into the water, sighting, and especially when you're panicking. A lot of myself included and my friends, we will have panic attacks when the waves are choppy, or when the crowd gets too much and we feel quite suffocated. But to overcome this is to know how to get yourself calm when the situation strikes. So you had to go through the practice. So there are tips of how you can calm yourself when you're panicking in the open water. Yeah. So I guess to summarize, because I am long-winded, is to schedule in sessions that are super tough, that really challenges you, that you think that you cannot complete, that in your mind you say that's impossible. The more you need to do it at least once a week, and to practice it, to practice the races, and to practice for worst case scenarios. There are going to be worst case scenarios that will happen in your races. So the more you run through all these things in your mind, the more prepared you are, the less fearful you are, and you are going into your race.
All right. Well said by Sue. Okay, so So just a pointer again to those who are not ready to complete your Ironman or your triathlon. Don't worry. Like Sue mentioned, your body need to train and you need to put it and progress its overload. Okay, you don't push it too much at the initially. So as you go along, you push yourself, you push your boundary every time, and of course, that's the only way for your body to adapt to a new
Yes.
situation. I
Correct.
think at the end of the day, no one's get better by not practicing. Same as us when we were kids, we don't know how to walk. We keep practice walking jatuh, throw naik jatuh, and then eventually we know how to walk. Same goes
Yeah.
with all other sport you need to do. You need the reps. You know, you can expect to build a big bicep if you don't do the reps. Same goes with this
Yes,
sport, I
that's
guess.
right. That's a very
All
good
right.
way
Okay.
of putting it.
Okay,
Correct.
all right. Okay, so it's all about repetition. And one point I think that worth mentioning is about training phases. I think a lot of all the noobs and all the one who are too gung ho, they tend to forget
Mm,
about doing a proper planning in the training, and then getting injured themselves early. You know,
mm.
because they were pushing too hard at the wrong time. Okay. All right. Okay, that's good. We have a few questions from the audience. So if I may pull one out for you, Sue. Okay, we have one coming from Ilwan. What's your comment on the low heart rate training? Is it really necessary for you to master this before you can incorporate other type of training, speed, strength, conditioning? I think probably he is
Yeah, yeah,
referring
yeah.
to the
Yes.
running
Yeah,
aspect
yes, yes.
of yeah. Maybe you can share
Yeah.
a bit based on your experience. So.
Yes, I know. I've been getting a lot of questions about this low heart rate, as primarily MAF, the methadone method, right? Uh, so yes, I do think that you should do low heart rate training, especially in the base phase. Even for shorter distances, because it builds your endurance, right? So okay, just to explain, in base phase, the name itself is base. So you're laying down the foundation. You're basically preparing your body to build and to take more impact, more work, to do more work in the coming months. So in the base phase, yes, low heart rate training is necessary. Maybe not to master, but to incorporate. I'm pulling it back to this training philosophy, I guess. The 80-20, the Matt Fitzgerald 80-20 philosophy of training, which is 80% low endurance and 20% high intensity, which is the harder work. So perhaps you can try that one. I don't know, Irwan, in which of it. I guess we're all in base phase and CO, right? Yeah. So you can do your low heart rate training, but which is your aerobic zone 1, zone 2, and then add in all this speed work to build that. Um, there are supporting tissues and muscles around the hips to build up speed and power. I want to explain again. So in base phase, yeah. So in base
Wait,
phase low heart rate training, A1, the whole point is that you build in that muscle resilience, that your body can take up the load slowly and safely. Yeah, so I think this is why the methadone is so popular, because um, when you run slow, when you run with a low heart rate, you injure less and you can run more and you can recover more. But I would also like to add, if you're doing low heart rate training, which is in your base phase, that you also add in strength training, because then it complements it very well. So strength and this low heart rate training during this time will be good.
all right. To summarize, Irwan, make sure you continue with your base and also you can still incorporate your strength work at
Yes.
this stage. Okay? But probably lesser of the speed and conditioning work. All right. So strength is okay, right, Sue? Correct me if
Yes.
I'm wrong. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Please do more
Okay.
strength.
Okay, do more strength and you can still continue with your base training. Okay, so we will move on into the next question before we put out more question from the audience. All right, so there some question that might be relevant, especially not for the crowd itself, probably the new one like me who never enter
And
triathlon or whatever, so not. Will there any criteria or qualification for a person to join an Ironman event, or maybe, I mean, local Ironman, and maybe for the Kona whatever, I know there's a certain event that is a
now you have to qualify.
yeah, I know. Okay, so maybe you can cerita sikit about this event. What's the procedure from, the local one, and then if you want to go to the world stage ke apa, any specific thing that you need to qualify?
Not really. To join, there's no criteria. There's no prerequisites that you need to have to join triathlon in Malaysia. But if you're talking about qualifications, like the 70.3 or to Kona, so yes. So but it depends. If every race will have a certain number of slots or qualifications that they give out for each age group. It's a very complicated math. So as long as you come in number one in your category, you will get a slot. But some age groups are very big, right? They have more participation, so they will give maybe the top two or top three to go to qualify for Kona or the 70.3 World Champs.
So guys, those who are aspiring to be part of the Kona qualification event, make sure you train hard with Sue or Rupert to get you're ready for that. Free advertising there. Okay. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next question. Okay, training for so long can sometimes create fear in athletes and can lead them to giving up. I mean, because overloading, especially if you don't have a proper programming, you just overload yourself at the beginning of the stage.
That's true.
And okay, if does it happen to any of your athletes? And how do you convince them, to stay put and believe the process that they're gonna get something out of this long-winded process of training? Because some people doesn't have that strong mentality to stay put and follow the program. Maybe after 2, 3 hard sessions by the coaches, they give up. How do you convince them and make them stay all the way, and it's gonna be ROI positive for them?
It's very difficult to convince someone to push hard or to stay on and stick with the program. It in the end it depends on the person. You have to ask yourself, what is your goal? What's your objective of doing this in the first place? I understand that people do get tired, that you have physical stress and mental stress, you have work stress, a lot of stresses in your life that will leave you to burning out. So then you ask yourself whether this is actually the right time. Because especially if you're just an age grouper and you're not an elite, there's no pressure for you to stick to triathlon. So perhaps now is not the time. Maybe later would be right. You don't have to pressure yourself to do anything that you are not finding joy in. But if you find that you actually do want it, and you want to remain focused and motivated in it, and your coach's role is actually to keep you in line and to keep your fire burning. So that's why you have a coach. If you are self-coached, I would say that you give yourself some small goals, small achievements. So for example, this week you can run a 6-minute pace. Suddenly from a training, next week you suddenly find, hey, I'm like 5 seconds faster. So you need to find the little joys in it. And another thing, I think this is possibly the biggest trap, is that you follow a lot of people on Instagram. So you start to compare yourself with other people. It's hard to say this, but you have to ignore what other people are doing and only focus on your own journey, your own progress. So don't compare yourself and demotivate yourself that way. Look at your own stats, compare yourself to yourself. So
I totally agree. I couldn't agree more with you. So I think a lot of people, as a coach myself, I see a lot of people compared to all those, fitness influencer or whatever athletes like out there in their social media, instead of focusing on themselves. So and then it sometimes it's unrealistic for them to just follow them blindly and compare it blindly without knowing what the other person have done, you know. So it's not really fair for them to do that. And I think one good point that you mentioned that is about progressing yourself and put a small goals, so that will push you to a better result in the future. Because when you see not result, when you see progress, you will tend to make yourself, oh yeah, I'm doing something right here, so I'm
Yes,
progressing. So when you
yes,
see your progress, then that's when you're going to push a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And as a coach, I think it's probably our responsibility as well to set something achievable for the
yes,
athletes, so for them to feel joy in the sport. All right.
yes, yes, correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm gonna pull out a few questions before we go to our next segment, which is a rapid fire question. Okay, from Achit. Okay, for beginner who want to compete in the Ironman, any tips for the beginner? For example, what should they do at the first place before competing in Ironman? Which training is suitable for them? I think it's quite generic. Maybe sum
It
up
is.
this quickly.
Yes. Yeah. For a beginner Ironman, all right. What should they do at the first place before competing in the Ironman? To first get a bicycle, Buy- and then which training is suitable for beginners? I don't know how to answer this one because again, it's very generic. Uh, yeah, I suppose you can start anywhere. Well, if you are alone and you need to find friends, you need to find groups because as already asked before, keeping yourself motivated in trading is going to be tough. Yeah, so I guess first find a group, a very competent and those very willing to share triathlon group or even a group of friends who you can train with because training for triathlon is a lot of hours and you might not want to do it on your own, especially for your long rides. Those long rides can go for hours, 6 hours, maybe 7, depending. Yeah. So that is one, find a group. Two is to understand your training program. If you're not planning on getting a coach and you want to be self-coached, there's a lot of books out there that can actually guide you on how you can be self-coached. Um, maybe not online. Make sure that the book that you buy is written by a credible coach. And then you can read, and then from there you can kind of understand how you can then coach yourself if that is your option that you don't want to have a coach, pay for a coach. And I suppose number 3 is to be honest with yourself, I guess. And because when you're training, it's a very long journey, right? So you need to be honest with yourself. You have to put your ego aside sometimes and maybe share this, your Ironman journey also with your family and friends to pull them in. I have a lot of cautionary tale, which is that a lot of people who train for Ironman, one is they overdo it and they burn out, and then they have a very bad and miserable Ironman race, and then they don't do it anymore the following year because they have a horrible experience, and then they're stuck with this expensive bike. Or two, that they find imbalances in their life, in their work and their family. So you must find balance within your triathlon training, your family, and your work. So make sure that it stays harmony in harmony. Oh, and many more actually. I can't list it all because there's no there's no
There's too much.
direction.
All right. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. So to summarize, if you're into and you're a beginner, get yourself a bike first because you need that. It's part of the discipline. And then get yourself a book, or if you don't have any coaches, make sure you don't push yourself too hard. You know, have a group. Have a group. That's very important. I couldn't
A
agree more
lot.
because
Yeah.
that would help you to, I know, motivate and put you accountable. Because if you're
Yes.
doing it late, it's very hard. Okay. Okay, so we got one more question before we move into the rapid fire question. It's from Edit Liu Lels. Okay, I don't know if his actual name Lels at the end. Okay, How often do you recommend we do hard session as opposed to easy ones in a week? And a quick one for triathletes, yoga and strength training in the gym.
Okay, so there's two questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so how often do you recommend hard sessions as opposed to, well, how you how you structure it, especially for triathlon, is a bit different because you have swim, bike, run. So you don't do two swims in two hard runs or two runs consecutive days or two bikes. So you must structure it well.
Okay.
So yeah, so maybe for the weekdays, you do shorter intervals for runs and your bikes, and right. So you leave your weekends for all your long distance ones for your endurance building. Yeah, I can go on and on. I'm trying to make it short, the answer. So yes, I do recommend hard sessions during hard sessions as opposed to easy ones in a week. How often? Yeah, so at least one hard session for each swim, bike, and run, and one long session for the weekends for your bike and run. That's my recommendation. And a quick one for triathletes, yoga or strength training in the gym. Both. Do both because they both serve very different functions. So strength is to build muscle and to build power. Yoga is to build flexibility, mobility, and the elasticity of your muscle. So it's a very wholesome program that you will have.
All right. So in summary, if you don't know how to do a program yourself, and you can't find any resources,
Yeah, get a coach.
go find a coach, or if you are cheapskate and you don't have money, there's a lot of coaches nowadays are offering a program. They write a program and they consult you from time to time. For example, RC coaching is doing that, so you can
Yes.
refer to the head coach. All right. Okay. So we're gonna move into our next question, rapid fire. Okay, it's gonna be short and fast. So this time around, you don't have to give a long-winded answer. Okay, short and precise. All right. Question number one: who is your favorite sports hero?
Nicola Spirit.
All right. Who, I don't know who is that, but most likely triathlon punya. Okay. Okay. Number two: what is your favorite sports quote?
I've been asked this a long time ago. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't grow you.
All right, fair enough. Okay, who will be at every race or any event that you ever had beside Rupert?
Oh, with me, is it? Yeah, beside
Yeah.
Rupert. Who will be? I don't know. Everyone.
Okay.
Please, every race I go, it's the same muka.
Okay. Your crew lah, the RC team lah. Okay. All right. Next question. What is your routine or ritual before any specific race or event?
Service my bike. I must rest a lot, and I do a lot of deep. I breathe through my belly because before races I'm going to be very nervous, so I do a lot of belly breath.
Okay.
Yeah, and I go through all my mental stuff lah.
Okay. All right. So, what is your favorite movie about sports, if there any?
There's not a lot of movie about sports. The only one is, I guess, I also lupa lah. Try. I think the title is Try. That's the only triathlon movie that there is.
All right. You don't have to choose a specific triathlon sports for the movie, right?
Only two.
Any sports. Okay, but it's okay. All good. Try this. Okay. So, what is your favorite sportswear color?
Black.
What? Okay.
Black.
Black. Oh, come on. Okay, this is gonna be one of the toughest questions we asked today, especially for Malaysian. Okay, so what is your favorite food?
Oh no! Oh, satay.
Satay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So I mean, everyone have their moment. So what is your most memorable moment in your sporting career?
Mm. Memorable. Oh, I guess it would be when I qualified, I guess. When I qualified for the 70.3 World Champs. That's
All
quite
right.
memorable. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Something you always wanted to try but too afraid to do.
Ye- I've done most. Mm. I don't know lah. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Nothing
Okay.
comes to mind. Yeah.
Okay. That's all good. All right. Last but not least, the toughest competition you have ever had.
That was, ooh, I remember the PD try. I think it
Okay.
was before the lockdown.
Okay. All right. All right, we got a few comments coming out, so maybe I can share some of it. So we have Afiza, she says you want to be your support crew. All right. And then Rupert probably mentioning about the most memorable moment when she. Okay. All right. Okay. So before we move on into the next segment, I'm just gonna put one more question for Afiza. What would you recommend if a person dislike or scared with one of the
Discipline.
disciplines? What would you recommend them to do?
Dislike. I guess you
Yeah.
mean like swimming. There's a lot of people don't like swimming.
Yeah, maybe. So maybe you can give a tips or two how you yourself overcome the swimming
Ooh,
aspect.
I know. I overcame it by having a friend to train with me, which is this person right here. So in the beginning, so we learned how to tumble turn in the pool. So we made it fun in a way. So you just change it from something that you dislike to something that you enjoy, like, and eventually love. So yeah, find someone to do it, make it fun. Um, I don't know. Yeah, that's
All
it.
right, okay. All right, thank you, Sue. All right, so Hafiza, hopefully Sue has answered your question. All right, okay, so we're gonna have another about 10 minutes or so, and we're gonna before we wrap up, okay, and I'm sure you have your training later on, perhaps, I don't
Yeah,
know,
this
Friday.
morning.
Okay, done this morning, okay, so Friday night is party night, let's go. Okay, okay, so a few more questions for you. Okay, this might be a bit sensitive or might be okay for you, but I'm sure some of those who have not involved in triathlon are not familiar with it. Okay, so can actually is there any toilet available when you do your Ironman and stuff like that? And
Yes,
you know,
yes, there
okay,
is. So
okay,
even
okay,
during the race,
mm,
there will always be porta potties
okay,
by the aid station. So don't
all right.
worry.
Okay, so do you as a coach would strategize your athlete to go when to
Huh? What?
do you as a coach would strategize your athlete to okay this is when you do your potty or whatever or is just let go let the nature take its course.
No, actually, the tip is, and everyone knows this, is to just do it on the bike, unless it's the number two, you really cannot, and then you can just stop lah. But otherwise, if it's a like just a number one, just do it on the bike.
Right, oh that sounds so gross. Okay, this is something new, for me obviously. Okay, now I know all the triathletes dirty secret.
Yeah, that's why we don't hug people after.
Okay, okay. Oh man. Okay, now I know what to do. Not to do after this. Okay, number two. Okay, question. I mean, I'm sure nutrition plays a lot of huge important roles in Ironman performance. I mean,
Yeah.
is there any specific diet? I mean, that you would recommend to your athletes in order for them to perform better throughout the training period,
Mhm, yeah.
pre-event and during the event and after the event for recovery. Maybe you
Oh,
can probably summarize in short what kind of simple nutrition plan for them.
there's no nutrition plan, but the important thing is to eat. Yeah, because you're really breaking down the body when you train and when you race. So it's important for you to fuel and to build it back up. So the plan here is to eat before you train. Um, Especially even in the morning, you can have a power bar or some bread before you train. So you have some solid calories in. So during your training, then you can take in your calories, you can drink it in. That's also good and a must do. What a lot of people don't ignore is that if you don't feel your body, you don't perform well in your training and your race. And then after your training, it's important again to take in your recovery drink because you have to rebuild back up again. But I always recommend adding, collagen powder.
Mhm.
So with your recovery drink, you add maybe a scoop or two of collagen because it's just simplified. It's protein peptides, and it really builds back up. Especially if you are of a certain age, that you don't really produce a
Okay.
lot of collagen
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah, so you must put more.
All right, fair enough. So, guys, make sure if you want to get involved in triathlon, so you have to replenish your body with a proper nutrition, and that's include nasi kandar. As long as you get,
Yeah.
as long as you get enough calories, after all those hard work on training and
I,
especially on the
I
racing.
I'd like to add one more, if I may, because I think
Yeah,
this is
continue.
an opportunity for people to stop dieting when you're training. Stop. Your body needs the calories. So when you're training, you're already at a caloric deficit. So if you're starving again your body is going to break down, and that's when you get all your injuries and you burn out. So eat, don't diet, don't be afraid.
All right, awesome. All right, we're gonna move into one last question before we pull any other question from the audience. I'm sure in any sport there will be a lot of injury, and one of the most common injury for Ironman is chafing. I don't know what is that, but my team have come up with it. Chafing, CHAFFING. Since it involve a lot of huh?
Shuffling
Chafing. I don't know.
or shrifting.
Shifting.
Oh,
Okay. The spelling involve a lot of repetitive motions. And how does one avoid this issue when you are in this sport?
okay, chafing, usually because from friction. So the best way is to lube it. One of the tips would be to use the Vaseline. The areas that we usually get are usually the tightness, like the collar of your tri suit, maybe the sleeves, the armpit, because you swim a lot. So there's a lot of friction movement here at the shoulders, and also the your legs lah here, the knee. Yeah, so just a lot of Vaseline, lube it, reapply during transition if you need to. That helps a lot.
Okay,
Either
because
that
I
or yeah,
yeah,
or just a better fitting tri suit.
okay, 'cause I seen some of my friends who were doing like all this have some blood on their chest after certain running and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
there's
yeah,
also like plasters because sometimes
okay,
it rubs and it's very painful. So they plaster
okay.
it.
Okay. All right. Okay. One question from Muzaffar, our good friend here. Okay. Okay. So, I mean, I'm sure you have probably done some taping in the past. So, Muzaffar just want to know, does taping actually improve your Ironman performance? If yes, how and why? Or is it just a gimmick?
I
You
think this
know?
is a question for Azmi.
So, I mean, we have to ask those who are using it, okay? Who using it? The athlete themselves.
Yes,
They have, yeah.
yes, as a user, as a taper
Yeah.
myself, yeah, so I do, especially when you need that extra support. Even if you are not suffering or having any injuries, it's okay to take. Why not? Right? Yeah.
Yep.
Does it
Yeah. I mean,
improve performance?
yeah.
No.
Maybe as a injury prevention and stuff like that. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. So we have this covered a lot of psychology part of the Ironman triathlon and criteria training that one should prepare for such intense sports. So thank you very much for your time today. So maybe we're
Thank
gonna give you one last word to the audience, if you may share your wisdom or parting word to the audience on who is a one wanted to try doing Ironman but still afraid to do it, what is your advice to them and how can they get involved and how they can start?
okay, I think you should take the opportunity right now during MCO if you want to start or to do triathlon. Right now is the best time for you to train and to train your base and see whether you like it or not. Yeah. So don't miss out on this opportunity.
Okay, guys, that's all from Sue today from RC Coaching. So, if you ever decided to be part of this awesome sport, do get in touch with Sue or Rupert. Okay, one of my good friends as well. So they'll be more than happy to guide you and come welcome you in their community. Thank you very much, Sue, and hopefully we'll catch you again to some other time.
Oh, yeah. Take care. Stay safe, guys.
Okay, bye bye. Okay, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. So we're gonna pop up the question, okay, that you need to answer. How many events does it involve in Ironman? Okay, how many disciplines? So make sure you drop down your answer on the comments below, and make sure you have shared this video. Otherwise, you're not eligible to win anything. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for tuning in again with us. Coffee Talk Show with ATF, and I hope this show have bring you value and you have missed out all on our previous episode. You can catch up and with our last episode in the Facebook page or our YouTube channel. So that's all from me. Till then, to our next show with a different audience that will definitely bring a lot of value to you guys. Stay safe and do our part to flatten the curve. If you haven't got your jab, that make sure you register and get ready to get your jab. To then, play with confidence.